The ayes have it. Your bill is amended. You may now begin your explanation.
Thank you, Chairman and members. This bill I worked on with local law enforcement in my district over the summer. What this bill would allow is under very strict guidelines, which is spelled out in the amendment of the bill. It would allow teachers, administrative staff, personnel, full-time personnel for a local LEA to carry a concealed firearm to protect their kids in the instance of an active shooter in their school. What this bill does, unlike previous bills and what has not been communicated, is there would be no difference between a local law enforcement agent in your community and this person, because they'd have exactly the same training and requirements. Those being 40 hours of training with the local law enforcement at their own expense, a mental health background check, mental health evaluation for that teacher, a background check with the FBI, as well as training with the local law enforcement agency. The director of schools and the principal of said school would be notified as it relates to this person's desire to carry, and obviously the law enforcement agent of that has an MOU with the LEA would be responsible for the knowledge and understanding that this person was carrying a concealed weapon to protect their kids in their school. Once again, this bill would not change anything. There wouldn't be any difference between a law enforcement agent, because these requirements would have to be done annually for them to continue to do that. With that brief description, I'm happy to answer any questions. I will say, in my research regarding this process, this body, many years ago, passed what was called campus carry on institutions of higher learning. They, that bill, there were no law enforcement training requirements. There were no mental health background check. There was no notification of the dean or the president of the university, only to the law enforcement agency. After this bill passed the Tennessee General Assembly, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation does an annual crime report on campus crime in our state, and after the passage of that bill, overall crime was reduced on our college campuses by more than 16% or more in every category. This bill and its original idea did not come from me. It actually came from the reading that I completed on the Marjory Stoneman Douglas or Parkland shooting that you said. There was a committee formed in Florida, and they looked at what could be some best practices, some of those which were in the governor's legislative and budget package this year. One of those suggestions out of that committee report is to create what would be a peace force, or teachers would be able to carry with the same restrictions that are in this bill as well, as it relates to training and law enforcement. Obviously, I have kids in the public school. One of the biggest challenges that we have, or I had kids in the public school, I'm an empty nester now, but one of the biggest challenges that we have and that I'm asked in my district every day is, not just before last week, but every week, have we done everything that we can do? Have you done everything that you can do? And the answer to this question, there is more that we can do, and this bill is one of those things we can do. I look forward to working with my colleagues about other things, but this allows me to say, to look in the mirror and say to myself, yes, we could do this, and we did do it. I'm happy to answer any questions the members might have.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Williams. Before we get to, we've got a number of people who's asked to ask questions on this. Let me ask the first question. When you talk about the 40 hours of training, how does that compare to an SRO officer? It sounds like we're an instructor that has SRO training. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Section E of the amendment on page 3, it says that this person should successfully complete 40 hours in basic training in school policing and as required by current code. when the authorization to carry a handgun is issued, that member must complete a minimum of 40 hours of training specific to school policing and approved police standards, which are post-certified trained hours, which is the same post-certification that local law enforcement in our communities do now.
Thank you. We'll have more, but let's start with the first hand up was, oh, by the way, we do have those who have requested to testify on this, and we can, but let me get to a couple of members' questions, then we'll come back to that. First hand up was Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the sponsor, thank you for these these changes. I sincerely appreciate and think that these are some extremely positive changes and additions to make this bill way better than I feel the one dealing with higher education. But my question, I guess, concern remains. As I looked at the body cameras footage, as we all did, these men, in this case men, were extremely nimble, tactical, and they took that building systematically and left no stone unturned. This is not easy work in terms of the training and preparation for any time someone comes into one of our institutions of learning. It's difficult, right? You have a bunch of classrooms, a bunch of hallways, a bunch of corridors. Do you think this 40-hour requirement, I would venture to say that a typical policeman or SRO probably isn't fully prepared on how to deal with this, these type of entries, people coming into our buildings to do harm. So do you think the 40 hours is going to be enough to allow them to be able to take on a situation, which is the reason for them carrying a gun?
Chairman Williams.
As it relates to the individual who chose to go through this training, I can't speak to the individual, nor could we speak to the young men who you referenced in your comments about last week. But what I can say is that the director of schools, the mental health background check, the training, and the inculcation of all that together with the local law enforcement agency, that local law enforcement agency can still prohibit that person from the ability to carry that firearm. So if they were concerned at all about their nimbility, if that's a word, then that would be the responsibility of the LEA or the local law enforcement agency.
Follow up, Representative McKenzie.
Yeah, and this is my last kind of, I guess, question / concern. Again, but I promise you, these changes are good changes. They get to making sure that the folks carrying weapons are mentally able and capable. They don't have the background. So again, thank you for that. But my second concern is these teachers, to the eyes of what I would call real law enforcement, are just subjects. And this person has a gun, and he or she's in the hallway with this weapon, maybe trying to help out law enforcement, and they're going from classroom to classroom when everyone else is running toward. That's not a good look from if I'm law enforcement and I'm going into this area. So that, how do you think we can deal with, I know you said that law enforcement will know in ABC Elementary, there's 2 people that have concealed carry and have permission to have it in the classroom. So, but how do they get that information? And how, this is a volatile thing when we have these things. And unfortunately, somewhere in this country, we're going to have another one. How do we reconcile them going after a shooter and there's active people with weapons in the same building?
Chairman Williams.
Thank you. First of all, we trust our teachers with the lives of our children every day, and I'm thankful for the. I'm thankful for the work that they do. In this instance, the local law enforcement agency and their active shooter training demonstration will create an action plan as it relates to that individual person once they complete all the parameters of this bill. So it may be that they are sheltering in place. I don't know and wouldn't want anyone to share anyone's active shooter training protocol no more than we'd want someone to see how any other active shooter may have entered a building. But this is something that I believe in communicating with local law enforcement in our community that they will work out as it relates to the details based upon their individual situation.
Thank you. Let's now go to Representative Butler. Love. Okay, let's now go to Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, thank you for bringing this bill. I just recently, in the last 3 months, have had several educators approach me, and each one of these ladies had asked for us to take this on. And each one of them presented to me a need to further harden our schools against evil people. And they talked about a deterrence. And when they asked me those questions and they made those comments and they talked about deterrence, they mentioned like an ADT sign outside their homes, and how that it has been proven that just knowing there was an alarm in the home prevented some crimes upon that home. They talked about our military and remaining strong in these United States has prevented additional major conflicts in this world. And so I think the logic that those educators in my district were asking for us to apply is to allow us to harden our schools and to prevent these evil and predatory people from attacking our children. And so there is a question at the end of this. It is also proven both in the wild and in human beings that predatory people prey on the weaker. And so is the design of this bill intended to be a further or additional deterrent to those evil people hurting our children?
You're recognized, Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Fritz. Obviously, my good friend from Knox County recognizes the great revisions that were made to preserve the integrity and security of the school. But the greatest benefit, I believe, in this bill, it allows our local LEAs to be able to put a sign outside the front of their school that says, under TCA, that there may be someone in this facility that carries a concealed weapon, because based upon the TBI campus crime report and what's going on higher education campuses, not many people carry weapons on our higher education. And my suspicion is, in this case, not many teachers will either. But the greatest value is we're able to put a sign out in front of the school that says there could be someone else in here, which we found out, some of us members found out, that deterrents are the greatest asset we have as it relates to preventing school shootings or any shooting at any place, because of the places that weren't attacked last week. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Let's go to Chairman Sapicki.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hold my comments, but I'd like to ask, can we go out of session, because out of session might spur more comments for us to make to the people presenting.
Any objection, committee, going out of session? You have an objection? And Representative, okay, I'll recognize you before we go out of session. You're recognized for a question, not a comment, but a question.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions. The director of schools can okay a person under the new amendment, right? And so which means they'll know. But when that director of schools approves this person, can the principal of that school disapprove that individual?
Chairman Williams.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm looking for the
Sure.
So I can read.
You're recognized, and we also have legal helping, but go ahead, Chairman Williams.
Thank you, legal, for helping, but I think I'm on page 4 of the amendment, section D. It says a joint written authorization of the LEA's directors of school and the principal of the school, which a person is assigned to, shall be notified of that, and they'll have a direct input with it. But what is different about that that information is preserved confidential to protect the active shooter protocol in that school. So, for instance, they're not going to post on the bulletin board, the principal and the director of schools knows that, Chairman Sapicki is the one at this school that's carrying.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Chair, do you mind? Just real quick follow-up.
Yeah, you go ahead. You're recognized.
The 40 hours of training, do we know what the 40 hours of training consist of? And is this something like that will be online training, or is this something that's physically, the actual physical training that police officers go through in post-training?
Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. In Section E, once again, as I communicated earlier, the faculty must complete a minimum of 40 hours of training specific to school policing, and it must be a certified, post-certified training.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Before we go out of session, Representative Love, did you have a comment on
Yes,
the
sir.
question?
I had a question to the sponsor. Under Section D, number 3, it says the name and contact information of a person authorized to carry or possess a firearm on school grounds. This refers to what's not open for public inspection, correct?
Chairman, yeah.
Does that mean that a parent won't know if their child is in a classroom with a teacher who has a firearm?
Chairman Williams.
They will not know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Without any objection, let's now go out of session. We're out of session. We have a Jason Sparks, Moms Demand Action, Krista Westerfeld, and Kierman Reed. If y'all come to the podium up front. When you get up there, you'll see a mic button, and I need you to identify yourself. We're live video streaming. Everything we do here, of course, is out for all the public. Identify yourself, and then you have 2 minutes, and then I'll move on to the next person. Let's start with Jason Sparks. You recognize.
Hi, I'm Jason Sparks. I live here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a native Knoxvillian, and I live here with my family. I'm also a gun violence survivor. My wife and I have 2 children in public schools here, and I'm here today representing the Tennessee chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America in opposition to this bill, HB 1202. Like people across the country, as a parent with kids in school, I'm heartbroken by last Monday's horrific school shooting and the lives lost forever and changed by it. Current Tennessee law generally prohibits guns in schools with several exceptions. In public schools, former or current law enforcement officers may carry firearms at a public school currently so long as they've completed basic police training, they have an enhanced carry permit, and the local LEA has adopted a policy allowing them to do so. Current law allows teachers and staff who meet these requirements to carry at school. Remember, they must have served as a law enforcement officer to carry guns at school. HB 1202 obviously expands the presence of guns in schools by allowing teachers to carry even those who have not had that full law enforcement training. Law enforcement officers receive on average 168 hours of training on weapons, self-defense, and the use of force. This bill would let a teacher carry in school, again, with just 40 hours of training of some sort. This bill also makes it very difficult for schools to know which children or which teachers are carrying guns on premises, as we talked, even with this amendment. You know, fellow teachers won't know. Parents won't know, you know. which teachers are doing this. So we oppose this dangerous expansion of arming teachers. If more guns and more places made us safer, we'd be the safest state on the planet, and we're not.
Members.
There
Okay,
is no evidence that arming teachers
sir,
makes
one second.
I'm sorry.
We need to move on. We have two sides on this occasion, and so we need to respect and move on. We, as I mentioned before, constitutional government. One thing I always told the committee last year, and I think we need to all remember, is when you speak as though you're absolutely right, and when you listen as though you're absolutely wrong. And we all need to remember that. We need to listen to each other and then come to the best decision. So I appreciate the support that is given, but let's move forward. Yes, sir, you have your 2 minutes about up, but I'll let you finish.
Yes, sir, thank you so much. So we oppose this dangerous legislation of expansion and arming teachers. As I said, last week's strategy might make people quick to think more guns is the answer, but more guns with less training is a recipe for disaster for our students, for our school staff, and for law enforcement tasked with responding to a crisis where they don't know who is the good guy with the gun versus the bad guy, as Rep. McKenzie said, especially in a crisis situation. Just look at the cam video from last week. Schools should be safe, trusting places where our children can learn and grow free from fear. While we are certainly basic security measures like internally locking doors and access control that all schools should implement, measures that make our schools more like military bases with signs that guns are inside do not create the nurturing and trusting environment that is conducive to learning. We know that arming our teachers doesn't make our children safer. In fact, it increases the chances that a teacher's gun will fall into the wrong hands, or that a gun will discharge unintentionally and injure a student, or, as happened in Texas a few weeks ago, which requires 80 hours of training, a school superintendent left a handgun in a bathroom that a third grader picked up. Introducing guns into schools isn't only ineffective, but you're introducing more risk instead of making anyone safer. Listen to school safety experts, school administrators and teachers, parents and students. Please keep guns out of our kids' schools. Please oppose this bill.
Thank you, sir. Let's now go to, thank you, Ms. Krista Westervelt. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm Krista Westervelt.
Okay, let's try to keep, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you. I come before you today as a mother of three. My youngest is here with me today to voice my opposition to HB 1202. I know the very real fear parents like me experience in the wake of every school shooting, every phone call from the school to let us know that a gun was confiscated on campus. Every morning when I drop my son at school, I tell him I love him, and I pray a silent prayer that I will see him again alive in the evening. I understand fear, but I also understand the risk in taking a reactive approach to addressing that fear. Perhaps you're familiar with the story of the old lady who swallowed a fly. The title character swallows a fly. Why, how, we don't know. But in an attempt to remedy the situation, she swallows a spider to catch the fly, and then a bird to catch the spider, and so on. Until her belly is so full of animals that she is weaponized against one another that she meets her demise. HB 1202 is an old lady who swallowed the fly approach to the issue of school shootings. It says if we just throw more guns into the belly of our schools, we'll take care of that fly. But like the old lady of the story, we do not take a moment to consider how this approach may harm the very ones that we say that we are trying to protect. Harm that comes when someone overpowers a teacher, take their gun, or if a young teacher is mistaken for an active shooter by a law enforcement officer, a teacher losing their cool with a student and aiming a gun as a threat or worse. And the fiscal immunity language in this bill signals that the authors are well aware of its real potential for harm. So I urge each and every one of you to pause and to consider the unintended consequences of this bill, to consider the unintended threat this bill poses to our children, your children, and my child. I urge you to vote no on HB 1202. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's now go. Kierman Reed, you're recognized, sir.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My bad. Yeah, I'm Kieran Reed. I'm speaking in opposition to the bill today as a student of Hillwood High School. I'm representing myself and unofficially the people that I'm in classes with, my teachers, my principals, everyone at my school. It's I've asked many people in my school, I've asked everyone what they think, and no one is supporting bringing more guns. Gun violence is terrifying for every single person in a school, and it's horrible that it happens to so many people. But bringing more guns, putting more people at risk is not the right thing to do. It's terrifying to know that I could go to school and not know who has a firearm. I could go to school and the people I trust, the people I put my faith into, the people who teach me could have a lethal weapon on them. Having people, like I have friends who might act up in a class and they might be put in harm of getting shot, and messing up or being loud is not worthy of the death penalty, or getting shot. It's not okay. It's terrifying. School shooters are horrible, but letting the people that teach you, letting the people that are nurturing your kids, nurturing the students, put them at risk is terrifying. It's horrible. And it sucks. It's just, I wish I could just go to school and learn instead of being terrified that I could die at any time.
Thank you, Kierman. Very well said. Thank you. Very well said, Kierman. And we all feel that way. It breaks our heart. At my age, and I used to teach school, the reason this is a tough one on me is when I used to be a principal of an elementary school, I had 200 students also. I don't know what I would have done if when I was a principal, the teacher there, and I heard someone coming in and I heard gunfire. What do? I would run to them, whether I had a firearm or not, because I couldn't stand to see any of those precious souls harmed. And I've often thought, would I want some kind of defense on me to kind of stop it before the police got there? This is a challenge for me. It really is. Kierman, did you want to respond to that?
I feel like even if someone else is bringing a gun to school, bringing a gun, and even I've asked my principals about it. I've asked the people who are higher up, the people who do know and they do care about the students, and they don't even support it. Because even if you could save someone with a firearm, you could kill someone. It's not a risk worth taking.
Thank you, Kierman. Members, while we're out of session, does anyone want to address our guest, Representative Parkson? You had your hand, you're on the list. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And give me your name one more time. I'm so sorry.
Jason Sparks, sir.
Jason Sparks. Can you please give me that quote one more time? If more guns made us safe.
We'd be the safest damn state of pardon French in the country.
No, don't pardon your French. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, we've already got a ton of guns in lots of places. You know, just trying to put them into more places isn't fixing the problem. We can't just keep throwing guns at every problem that we face. Agreed.
I needed that because I need to tweet this out, and I'm not laughing. You know, it's a profound statement. If more guns made us safer, we'd be the safest state in the country.
Can I just say one thing, sir?
You're recognized, sir.
Sorry.
You're recognized.
My kid brother. Okay, I'm sorry. Look, 2013, we put guns into cars. 2016, my kid brother was shot on a busy road in broad daylight. They never caught who did it. It's not too far away from here, guys. He just honked at the wrong person. Before 2013, that wasn't a thing that happened. We're the #1 state in the country in road murder now. It's putting more guns everywhere, again, just gets more people shot. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I appreciate your comments. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our other guests also. And thank you, young man. You had to have courage to do this.
We're now going to Representative Ritchie. Representative Ritchie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for being here and sharing your testimony. Mr. Sparks, I've got one question. I forget what the exact number was that you'd shared. You said that law enforcement's currently getting approximately 163 hours of training? 168 hours. So with this being at 40 hours, if it was moved up to 168 hours to be in parallel with that, would you be in support of it at that point?
You reckon?
Still having these issues. I mean, I don't know if anybody has studied some of the other states, if there's any data that you have where this is in place, but I just think, bring on more SROs. I think that's a great idea. To me, this is like Delta doesn't have enough pilots, right? So the answer is to train flight attendants and ground crews for 40 hours to fly a plane, right? This is kind of a half measure solution. Whereas if you wanted fun to bring a whole bunch of SROs in, I'd do that all day long, but not the teacher in front of my kids. I've got emails from other teachers who say there's plenty of teachers they wouldn't want to ever have a gun. God bless their hearts.
Okay. Thank you very much. You have a follow-up question?
Yeah, so if not the 160, would 300 be sufficient for teachers from a training standpoint?
No, I think a teacher's role is to teach our students. If you want to put a trained security expert in a school that's their only job, I'm with you all day long. Let's go.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is 40 hours wasn't enough. If we matched it, it's not enough. If we put more training to where that they're more trained than the law enforcement that you're saying you're okay, let's put all them in there.
Are these teachers or soldiers?
One second.
Okay, let's not have a running debate. Let's not have a running debate.
Is that
And
what you're
let's keep
getting
it
at?
going.
I think we put an awful lot on teachers right now as it is, and we don't pay them enough to make this on them. This is all that they're having to pay for. More on that, it's not worth the ROI.
Thank you. Okay, now Mr. Chairman, we're now going to go back out of session. Thank you all so very much for coming and expressing your belief. Thank you very much. We're back in session. Chairman Sapicki, you were next up.
Thank you, Chairman. So there'll be a question. I promise there'll be a question. I applaud, and I hope you all agree with us, I applaud Governor Lee's and the Lieutenant Governor's Speaker's initiative on improving gun safety, providing more money for school safety grants for public and private schools. The ambition to have an SRO in every public school in the state of Tennessee, with the training, obviously. The 95 Homeland Security agents to work on threat assessments in every one of our schools in Tennessee, because we have a constitutional obligation to provide for the security and safety of all people in Tennessee, but on education, the children of Tennessee who are in our school systems. Doesn't matter, in my opinion, it doesn't care where they go to school. They're all Tennesseans, their parents are all Tennesseans, and we have an obligation to protect them. Period. End of story. We have a huge mental health crisis in our communities, in our state, in our country. We heard that from testimony, that if I overtrain the people in the schools, whether they're teachers, janitors, coaches, administrators, professionals, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you. What matters to me is the protection of your children. Now, if you think that we're going to have an SRO in every one of your schools tomorrow, you're fooling yourselves. Because we're going to have to we got to find these people first of all. We got to train these people. We have to get them certified by the sheriff, get them trained to go into your schools, and then let them start patrolling to prevent this. Folks, that's 4 to 5 years away. I'm speaking.
We don't speak out.
That's 4 to 5 years away that your children will be at risk. I'm telling you, I'm not going to sit up here and jeopardize your children for 4 to 5 years when we can train people to hopefully stop a shooter. Now, you look at the active shooters in our country, especially the one right here in Nashville. This was over in minutes. But it took police officers 13 minutes to get there. 13 minutes, and there were 6 people already dead. What if that school would have had an SRO? What if that school would have had people who would have ran to the shooter to dispatch them? What if that school would have had ballistic tape on the glass so the glass doors wouldn't have shattered and he would have been trapped outside? Our goal is to make sure we do everything we can to keep the shooters when they show up on the outside of the school, allowing law enforcement to show up or someone to protect the children inside. Is it the greatest situation we have here before us right now? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm going to err on the side of protecting your children. I'm going to err on the side.
Ma'am, no. We're not going to have this.
Here's a
We're
question.
not running a debate.
I do have a question for the
Yes, sir.
sponsor. If the superintendent of the school doesn't sign off on these teachers, then this can't happen. Is that correct?
That's
Chairman
correct.
Williams,
Sorry, Chairman, that is correct.
you recognize.
If local law enforcement doesn't sign off on this teacher, then that teacher cannot carry into school. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So this is a permissive bill.
Yes,
Chairman
sir, it
Williams.
is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Let's now go back to Representative Butler. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question on the bill.
Are there three hands? There's been objection to the question. There's been three hands. Before I had to take a vote, do you want to pull your question? You withdraw it? Okay, it's withdrawn. Chairman Reagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the sponsor. This is a purely voluntary program. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Follow-up, sir? Follow-up?
Chairman Reagan?
Besides being voluntary on the part of the person who does this, this would also potentially include veterans and people who have had the opportunity to be around firearms for many years before they're actually in a classroom. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's go to Representative Warner.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor. First of all, I want to start by saying I've checked with one of my school superintendents in my district, and he supports this bill. Second, I would like to share a text that I received shortly after the tragedy last week from a Williamson County school teacher. My name is Blank, a teacher in Williamson County. We have met at the election at Longview on Election Day. And here she goes. I'm begging you, we need legislation to arm teachers. I would gladly be on the front line since I am a licensed gun owner. This is insane. Enough is enough. No mentally unstable individual is going to roll up in a school that's armed. I know you hear me. Let's get this legislation rolling. I'm so emotional, this hits way too close to home, Todd. This is a transgender lunatic who has targeted Christian children and adults. It's sick. It's absolutely sick. My response is I absolutely agree with you. And her response back is, every single county, this needs to happen. No one has to know who is armed. It shouldn't be discussed, but there should be a team at each school. Thank you for all you do. Chairman Williams, I want to thank you for bringing this bill. We can no longer sit back and not do nothing.
Sir, we can't do this. We got to have civil debate, or I have to ask you to leave. I understand everybody's got passion about this, but we have to have civil debate on this. It's unfortunate we even have to have this, but we have to have it. I'm going to go to Chairman Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the sponsor. If the bill passes, the concern I have is the trauma that a teacher may experience if the teacher has to discharge a firearm and actually hurt or kill somebody. In this bill, is there a provision for any type of counseling for the teacher after they have discharged a firearm and possibly taken the life of someone?
Chairman Williams.
Thank you. Just following the rules. In the instance of this, the local law enforcement agency of which they have an MOU of understanding, those benefits would apply in this instance because of the MOU between them. But just as the members of the committee asked me yesterday, this bill gives locals control. They can say whether or not they want to do it. So if your district and your LEAs and your community don't want to, their director of schools and their local law enforcement agents don't want to do it, but they do want to do it in Representative Warner's district, they can do that. It's completely permissive for them to do it. If they choose not to do, they don't have to, but if they do choose to do it, all the guidelines that I just described earlier today would apply.
Your follow-up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to piggyback upon what my colleague from Murray County referred to with the time frame for SROs. In light of that, let's say the time frame is 4 years to get SROs into all the school buildings. Would you be open to a sunset provision on this bill that after 4 years this sunsets?
Chairman Williams.
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, do I have anyone else on the list? Representative Gamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Williams, a scenario that comes to mind when thinking about this is if we have an active shooter that comes into a school and goes into a classroom, closes that door, barricades himself in there with the teacher and the students, and starts shooting those kids one at a time, what happens then?
Chairman Williams.
Well, under the current statute, what that perpetrator could do would be limitless only to their abilities. I don't have an answer for you. Under current law, that teacher couldn't do it. They could use what means they have in the classroom to try to protect the children that they are teaching.
Follow up. Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got two questions. Sponsor, so to confirm, one of the concerns that I'd had whenever we initially spoke, just to, I guess, get it on record, is through this particular bill, if a teacher decides to go forward with this, the superintendent, the law enforcement, principal, whatever it is, they're all on board. They're now able to bring a firearm into the classroom. That firearm has to remain on their person, not in a purse, not in their desk. They can't even get a safe and put it in their desk, whether it's biometric or anything. That it has to remain on them. Is that correct?
You recognize?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
All right. Thank you. And then the second question that I end up having is with it coincides with that. That would end up eliminating a gun being left in a bathroom or something of that nature, as it was referred to from Texas, if they're following the correct laws from there, correct?
Chairman Williams.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Chairman Speaker, you have a follow-up?
And just for clarification to sponsor, this body reserves the right in the future to come back and alter this piece of legislation at any time we so desire. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Representative McKenzie, you have or Chairman Love, whichever one wants to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the previous speaker brought up an important point that I didn't think about with where the gun is located on the teacher. But in section G, number 2, it points out where the teacher cannot have or when the teacher cannot have the handgun. It says, cannot carry the handgun at the following times or locations: stadiums, gymnasiums, auditoriums, when school-sponsored events are in progress, in meetings regarding disciplinary matters, in meetings regarding tenure issues. So when they have these meetings, where will the teacher put their firearm?
Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. The teacher would store the firearm in their vehicle, or they would leave it at home. That's what the current law says.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to clarify, and I just want to, as we think through this, you know, it's not an easy decision to make. And I know we have perspectives on different sides, but I think it's important to have this discussion because these are the things we have to think through when we're talking about the what ifs. You know, when a teacher has to go in and have the conversation with a parent about their child's discipline or about the child's educational process, what's the step look like for the teacher to then go and take the firearm off of them? You know, put it in their car or put it in a safe and what those processes are. So that's why I was raising the question because I think it's important for us to talk about these things and not rush to it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and sponsor, for that.
Chairman.
Yes, sir, Chairman Williams.
Once again, all those things and the how would be handled through the training and the relationship with the MOU through the local law enforcement agency. I mean, I understand you want to discuss what ifs, but that's what that process is for.
Okay. Okay, members, here's what we're going to do. Representative Kennedy, do you have a question before I close out?
Yes. You know, to my colleagues from Roane County and the teacher from Williamson, I would say anyone who's excited and anxious and wanting to carry a gun is absolutely the wrong person to be carrying a gun.
Okay. Thank you. Chairman. Okay, Chairman, you want?
So I would just say that as we form this program to go out to our 95 counties, I am hopeful, and as the sponsor said, there's going to be a dialogue, that there'll be a vetting process, because that's going to pop up. If someone walks in that first 8 hours, you're going to know whether he or she is got that vigilante type spirit. So I'm just really hopeful that the trainers and the law enforcement folks will have ability to poke people out of the classroom, because I think that's going to be an issue. But to the chair, I would ask for a roll call vote on this.
You have to have 3 hands. Any objection, members, to the roll call vote? 3 hands. Okay, when we get to that, we will have the roll call vote. Representative Fritz, I'm going to recognize you, and then I'm going to go back to the sponsor for closeout. I'll have a comment, then I recognize Chairman Williams. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to my good friend from Knox County, I don't think I used the word excited, just to correct that for the folks. There's no need to inflame this. I do have educators who are concerned, that are willing to protect our children. So just to set that record straight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, before I go back to Chairman Williams, I'd just like to say a few things. For those in the audience, appreciate your passion and your concern. We get that. It's been a rough week up here the past week. People get passionate, especially about the children. Kierman, thank you for being here. It's about you and protection, both sides of this argument. So we Kieran, I'm sorry, not Kierman, but thank you for being here, sir. And we appreciate that. When I came up here 14 years ago, the reason I came up here because you want to make a difference and you want to do the right thing. And sometimes it's hard to know what the right thing is, especially in the world we live in. I was very encouraged yesterday. I had an office full of students, 11th and 12th graders. I used to teach school 7th and 8th and 4th and 5th and 6th or 5th and 6th. Really enjoyed it. But I had 11th and 12th graders in yesterday, and I asked them, I says, tell me guys, where are we? What do you think we need to do? I was amazed that not one of them brought up guns. What they brought up was we need to restore the family. We need to restore our moral values in this country. And we need to pray. That came from the hearts of 11th and 12th graders. That's where we are. I think we as a society are kind of lost right now, and I know not everybody agrees with what I'm saying right now. So if this committee would give me the privilege as chairman before we take a vote, Representative Love, would you lead us in prayer? pray for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. God, we thank you for this day's rising up and going up. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to sit where we are, to enact policy that affects so many lives. God, we have prayed for wisdom. God, we've prayed for discernment. And God, we have asked for guidance. Lord, we just ask that you would also give us understanding and allow us, oh God, to listen to more than just our own voice. Bless us, oh God, that the work that we do will be beneficial to your children, and that it will give them protection, oh God, from so much of what in the world is seeking to destroy them. Help us also, oh God, to listen to each other, to not be offended by what we say to each other, but instead to seek to find the wisdom in our dialogue and understand that we are all coming from a place of concern and care. It's our prayer in your name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you very much, Representative Love. Recognize the sponsor before we take the vote.
Thank you, members. This is a very challenging, difficult topic nonetheless. As the body knows, these processes start long before the discussion or the events of last week. This is something I've worked on for several years now because I believe, like I said earlier, that we need to do the best that we can do for our kids, not just through mental health and SROs, but giving pathways, very restrictive pathways by which we can protect our kids in these environments where they hope to learn. This bill was a derivative of the many years of study and hours of work because of what happened in Parkland. And this bill mirrors exactly what they did there. The difference here is that it is permissive. If your district and your local LEA and your local law enforcement agency does not want to participate, they simply do not have to do that. But if you're from a small rural district where resources are limited, you don't have the ability to provide enough SROs for your community or an SRO at all. This would give you an opportunity to find a different pathway with training, background check, fingerprints, mental evaluation, in order to allow someone to carry concealed. That would be, in the instance that Leader Gant said earlier, would be an instance of which they could protect those whom which they care about. And an example given by Chairman White of what he would do if faced with this situation. What we know in Parkland is a teacher ran towards the gunman to protect the kids that were in their classroom. This would give a pathway for a teacher like that, instead of running towards them unarmed, would give them the opportunity to do that. I appreciate your patience. I know this is a difficult situation or a discussion for everybody, as it is for me. I think sometimes we lose the humanity of what it is we're doing, and it is about people. And it's always been my heart to try to protect people as it relates to this bill. I hope I can find your favor. With that, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. Members, at this time, I'm going, without objection, I'm going to have the clerk call the roll. Whoop. Hold on one second. I think somebody leaned up against the lights. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Chairman Williams is recognized.
Thank you. Before the lights went out, I meant to say I wanted to thank those that came here, testify, out of session. You know, I've communicated with some in their group from my own district, and I appreciate the opportunity for them to come here and to make their voices heard. I particularly appreciate one of our young students that came here. It takes a lot of courage to do that. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity myself to say thanks for them coming today. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, call the row.
Representative Baum. No. Representative Baum votes no. Representative Bulso.
Aye.
Representative Bulso votes aye. Representative Butler. Aye. Representative Butler votes aye. Representative Sapicki. Aye. Representative Sapicki votes aye. Representative Fritz. Aye. Representative Fritz votes aye. Representative Gant.
Aye.
Representative Gant votes aye. Representative Gillespie. No. Representative Gillespie votes no. Representative Haston. Pass. Representative Haston is present not voting. Representative Hurt. Aye. Representative Hurt votes aye. Representative Lafferty. Aye. Representative Lafferty votes aye. Representative Love. No. Representative Love votes no. Representative McKenzie. No. Representative McKenzie votes no. Representative Parkinson. No. Representative Parkinson votes no. Representative Reagan. Aye. Representative Reagan votes aye. Representative Ritchie.
Aye.
Representative Ritchie votes aye. Representative Stevens. Aye. Representative Stevens votes aye. Representative Warner. Aye. Representative Warner votes aye. Vice Chairman Slater. Aye. Vice Chairman Slater votes aye. Chairman White.
No.
Chairman White votes no. Mr. Chairman, you have 12 ayes, 6 noes, 1 present not voting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The ayes have it. The bill does move forward.
Thank you, Chairman and members.
To calendar. Okay. We're having a 2-minute recess while we go to the next bills. Okay, thank y'all. Calendar and rules. Okay, let's go ahead and we had discussion. Members, we're in recess.